We are wrapping up our interview series. We've been doing a lot of interviews the last couple of days with the authors from the book, Unleashing Your Soul Level Magic, which is this beautiful book right here. It features 12 stories from authors who are sharing about a gift they had, they maybe didn't know that they had, and how they were able to use that to overcome some big challenges in their lives. And I'm Corey Walmsley, CEO of Aurora Coriolis Publishing, and I was able to work with all these authors, help them write their stories. Excuse me. And I had the honor of publishing this book, so everybody out there can enjoy these. And right now I am joined by Darlene Kruth, who is one of the authors from the book, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you a little bit about what she does. So welcome, Darlene.
Thank you, Corey. I'm really happy to be here. I'm honored to be an author in this book, Unleashing Your Soul Level Magic. A little bit about me. I'm a native Pittsburgher, born and raised in the South Hills. I have an accounting degree from Duquesne University. I worked in my field for about 20 years, and then I did a career shift and got into residential real estate, which I've been doing for the last 17 years. But I do spend a lot of my time outside of work doing a lot of volunteer work for various organizations around the city that I've gotten involved with over the years. And that's really where my passion lies. And that's where my story begins.
Yes. And that's something that I knew you were involved in. I knew that you've always done, lots of fundraisers. You were always talking about, this is coming up. I'm helping out with this charity. I'm helping out with this scholarship. But I didn't realize until you wrote your story that really came from this big event in your life.
Yes. When I was a junior in college at Duquesne University, I lost my best friend. And it was a very difficult time for me to navigate. It was around the holidays, which made it even doubly difficult. And when I went home for Christmas break, I had to figure out a way to turn the tragedy into something positive. And I brainstormed, and I was 20 years old. I had never done anything like this before, but I decided that somehow, some way, I wanted to start a scholarship in my classmate's memory because he was very well known on campus. He was involved in a lot of activities, some with me, some we did separately. And I wanted to honor his memory. So I decided to write a personal check, and I literally took it to the president of the university's office and asked him, how do I start a scholarship? And at 20 years old, that was stepping way out of my comfort zone at that point in time. But he was very gracious. Fortunately, I knew him personally because I was a presidential ambassador. So I attended a lot of functions, either on campus, off campus, with him and in his absence to represent the university. So he was very gracious, and he pointed me in the right direction, sent me to the development office. I worked with the development folks and started the ball rolling from there. But I had to get, in addition to getting the university's okay, I had to reach out to my classmate's family. He wasn't from the Pittsburgh area. He was from Delaware. So I reached out to his parents and explained to them what I was intending or planning to do to get their blessing. Also got the blessing of the fraternity that he belonged to, because I knew I would need their support, and they backed me up 100%. So I spent the rest of my junior year and my senior year raising the money to endow the fund so that when I graduated, I knew the money would be there in perpetuity and that I could distribute it. I worked on the legal documentation for it. I created the committee composition. I knew who I wanted to have on the selection committee on an annual basis. I created the application itself to be distributed. I did all of that, all before I graduated, spring of my senior year. One of the fraternities on campus who had an annual Valentine's ball would have a fundraiser for charity by nominating all the girls across campus from the various sororities and fraternities to be V-Ball Queen. And basically, whoever had the most money in their jar, at the end of the night would be crowned queen. But they would donate this money to charity. So they reached out to me and said that they wanted to donate the proceeds that year to the scholarship fund, because a lot of the guys were seniors, a lot of the guys were in our class, and they knew my classmate. So I graciously accepted their donation, and that's what put me over the top. So once I graduated, I knew that money would be there forever and that I would be able to distribute it to deserving students on his and his family's behalf going forward. That's where the story started, and then it just sort of snowballed from there.
I love how the story started, because you had the support of so many people. Everybody wanted this to happen, and I love that you had this, village that, maybe you didn't even know that they would have supported you to begin with. And
I absolutely didn't have any idea that they would support me. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but they did. And some of those, especially the fraternity guys, some of those guys I'm still really close to this day, because that whole event, not only his passing, but the whole process of putting the scholarship in place, it just bonded us as a group of students. And to this day, a lot of us are still really close.
That's amazing. I love how you turned that into something really powerful. And you've been able to impact a lot of people with that too.
Yes, not just with his scholarship being the first one I started. I think the first year I gave it out was 1988, because I had to let the funds marinate, if you will, for a while to earn interest before I could distribute, because you can't distribute the principal. But in the meantime, other classmates and other classmen reached out to me over the years to help them start scholarships in memory of their loved ones. One happened to be a classmate whose father passed away, and he happened to be a vendor of the university. So he was very well known. And she was a classmate of mine in the school business, and her family started a scholarship fund, and they asked me if I would help them administer it, which I did. Another group, another fraternity, a business fraternity on campus, lost a classmate and wanted to. So once I kind of set the precedent, and I put the template out there, it was out there for anybody to use. And then over and above Duquesne, I've actually started another scholarship at my husband's high school where he teaches, in memory of my father-in-law. We did that about 7 or 8 years ago. So I have the template, I have the knowledge to impact a lot of students. And I serve on 7 different boards, and the funds that we distribute on an annual basis range anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So
Wow.
a lot of positive impact.
Yeah. So I know obviously why the ripple has happened since you started that first scholarship, but why did you decide on a scholarship in his memory?
For me, I think it was all about the concept of legacy. Like I said, we were both very involved on campus. We were in honor societies. He was in a fraternity. He was a Eucharistic minister. We were on the orientation team as group leaders. We did a lot, and we had a lot of impact on the university. So I wanted to leave a legacy. What would his legacy be? And that's how I decided would be the best way to leave a legacy.
I like that. So, when I first was talking about the Unleashing book, I know it was like last summer. What was it that inspired you to join the book?
I think, you and I have known each other for a couple of years, and I've often thought about, would I write a book about real estate? And I could never really wrap my head around that concept.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling it. So I thought, okay, let me just pitch this idea to you. And you were gracious enough to say that it was worthy of being included in the book. So I said, okay, now I've got to move forward. And, almost 40 years later, I felt like it was almost like yesterday as I was writing it, like to the level of detail that I was able to remember, at least my recollection of memory. but it was at the same time, it was cathartic to actually write it all down and get it out of my system.
Yeah. Yeah. What was challenging about the story when you were writing?
I guess really just reliving the whole experience.
Mhm.
From the day before it happened to the day that it happened, and then the several weeks after that, until I wrapped my head around being able to do something positive, to turn the tragedy into something positive. That was challenging. It brought up a lot of emotion.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know writing stories like this are always difficult, especially reliving. So,
Mhm.
so I'm also curious too. Was there something about the story that you really loved talking about, that you really loved retelling?
Hmm. Um, I think just the overall impact that it's had for the last almost 40 years, because he passed in 1985. So it's been 38 years, almost 38 years since he passed. Just the impact that it's had primarily on the Duquesne students, and the fact that I feel like all this work that I've been doing all these years, I feel like I'm doing the work of two people, but I know he's right there beside me, helping me.
Yeah,
So
I like that. So, can you imagine yourself before that happened? Do you think that you ever could have seen yourself doing this today, helping other people with the scholarships?
probably not, only because that was the triggering event. Maybe I would have found my way, in that direction at some point. Um, I belong to a Rotary Club. Well, we have a scholarship program in the Rotary Club, and I've gotten involved with that. My company now has a scholarship program that we've had in place for 4 years. I've gotten involved with that. Would I have done those things had I not had the background that I have? I don't know. I can't answer that question. That's a
Yeah.
tough one.
Yeah. I was kind of curious if that was something that you were always like thought about or interested in, but
Mm-mm. No, the interest came specifically from the event, I think, because I never did anything before that, except for the fact that on my own behalf, I would apply for scholarships to fund my own education, but I never would have thought about creating one, I don't think.
yeah. I think it's interesting to think about that and like where we would have ended up, and if that one thing had changed, our lives would be so different.
Absolutely, no question.
Yeah. So when people read your chapter, what do you think is the big takeaway? What do you want them to get from that?
I think the fact that there's always, another way of looking at things, no matter how bad things seem at the time, there's always a positive side, that you can turn any situation around. You just have to be committed to it.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful message. Yeah. And I know that you have a lot of stuff coming up because you're always involved in service projects and fundraising and scholarships and all these things. So can you let everybody know about some of the stuff you have upcoming? Because I know people out there want to support it.
Sure. My Northwood Charitable Foundation, which is my company foundation, we are sponsoring an oldies dance, which we haven't been able to have for 3 years now because of COVID, like everybody else, on Saturday, April 29th at the Mars VFW. And the proceeds from that dance are all going to be donated to the Friends of the Fisher House, which is located out in Oakland. And for those that don't know what the Fisher House is, it is to the VA hospital what the Ronald McDonald House is to Children's Hospital. And this is an organization that my company has been supporting since they broke ground and built the Fisher House back in 2010. And they've been open now for 10 years. and they've served thousands of families over the years and saved them millions of dollars in expenses while their loved ones are being treated at the VA hospital. And as luck would have it, the following day, I didn't plan this, but the following day on April 30th, which is a Sunday, my Pleasant Hills Rotary Club is sponsoring a spaghetti dinner from 2 to 7 at the Georgetown Center here in Pleasant Hills. It's $12 a person, and those proceeds will also benefit the Friends of the Fisher House. The veteran population in the Pittsburgh area is tremendous, and a lot of the organizations that I belong to, we try to do as much work as we can to support the veterans in the area, which is near and dear to my heart because my father and my father-in-law are both veterans. So I'm all about supporting that.
That's good. I'm glad that you're able to do so much and help so many people.
Yeah, it does my heart good. I enjoy it. Sometimes I think it's more of a full-time job than my full-time job, but I try to balance it as best I can.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it is. It's a lot. I've seen what you do, and it really is a lot. So, if you aren't getting, I'm sure that everybody's not able to thank you. So thank you for all that you do to help people. It's wonderful.
You're welcome. I enjoy it.
So can you tell everybody where they can find you? Maybe, is there a place where they can go to find out about some of the scholarships that you support?
They can reach out to me directly. They can reach out to me either on LinkedIn at Darlene Kruth or my company email, which is dkruth@tprsold.com or dbkruthrealtor@gmail.com. And on Facebook, I have a Darlene Kruth Realtor page, and I also have just my Darlene Kruth, my personal page. And then I have my web page, which is darlenekruth@thepreferredrealty.com. So they can reach out any number of ways and I can help them out. I'm actually in the process of toying with creating a scholarship consultation, like side gig, because I've been talking to people and they're telling me that the college coaches are just that. They're coaching these kids about the colleges and which direction to go. But when you ask them about scholarships, they kind of look at you like a deer in headlights. They don't know what to tell you. Yeah. And having read as many scholarship applications as I have over the years, I can honestly tell you, these students could use some help, because it's all about the way you write the essay and the way you fill out the application as to whether you're going to make it to the next step. In the process. Like right now, my company foundation, we've got 588 applications for 3 scholarships. So that's it's a lot of reading, and it's a lot of, did you answer the question? Did your letter of recommendation actually, was it more than boilerplate? Was it substantial? Did it actually give examples and, things like that? And I think there's a lot to be said for knowing how to write the essays and what to ask for when you're asking someone to write a letter of recommendation for you and things like that to get you to the top of the heap to be considered. So who knows, this book may turn into a whole side gig.
Yeah, that's something I never even would have thought about. So yeah.
There's a couple of years ago, a good friend of ours, their daughter was applying to college and she was applying to Duquesne, and they reached out to me about scholarships, and I went on the website, typed in the word scholarship, and 4,000 hits came up. I said, there's got to be a better way to navigate your way through this, labyrinth of information. There's got to be a better way. So I've been toying with the idea of creating some type of consulting business for that purpose.
Yeah, well, definitely keep us posted on that, because I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who could use some help.
Yeah, you have a ways to go with yours yet, but you'll get there eventually.
Yeah, well, my oldest is 10, so just a few years.
Yep, a couple years away and you'll be there. And it's sadly, it's not getting any cheaper for these students to go to college.
Yeah.
And no matter what your parents do, my theory is there isn't a student out there that doesn't need some help. And if I can kick a loan to the curb and give you a scholarship that doesn't need to be repaid,
Yeah,
that's the best of both worlds.
yeah, definitely.
So
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your story and your wisdom about scholarships and everything with
you're
us
welcome.
today. Yeah, it was wonderful talking to you about that. So everybody knows where to find Darlene if you have questions about her scholarships and if you want to ask about her story, or head over here to read the story here, Unleashing Your Soul Level Magic. Make sure you get a copy because today's the last day that we are doing our special sale because we hit #1 bestseller. So the ebook is still just 99 cents today. If you're watching, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Darlene, for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.